And there we are. So we are live today for, first of all, welcome everyone to Think Young Speaking Up for our Digital Future series. As you know, the Thinkathon project, it's something that we started 3 years ago, and it's a series of webinars and hackathon that through the years we have been running to involve young people in the policy debate. Today, I'm extremely excited of a panel discussion we're about to have. Women in business, can tech help bridge the gap? I have the honor of being surrounded by 5 extremely good, not just speakers, but also women that are absolutely running and leading the conversation in their different industry. We have people coming from the policy sector, we have people coming from the big companies, startups, associations. So it's really exciting, the crowd we have today. I'll try to keep myself at the minimum and let them speak absolutely. Let me do a quick introduction. First of all, we have Amaryllis Verhoeven, which is Head of Unit for Digital Transformation of Industry at the European Commission. And then we have Sofia Benjumea, who is Head of Google for Startups in Europe, Middle East, and Africa. We do have Karina Stan, which is Director of EU Policy and Head of the Brussels office at the Developers Alliance. And we have Deborah Choi, the co-founder at Bosk and co-organizer of Tech in Color. And finally, last but absolutely not least, Francesca Hodgson, co-founder and managing director of Goodbox. Thank you all for joining us and for especially this very important and timely topic. I go straight to the point so that we also, and let me remind one thing to people who are watching us, please, you can post your question in the platform you are looking at the webinar, so it can be LinkedIn, YouTube, or Facebook. You just post your question, and then close to the end of the webinar, then we will be able to post your question up on the screen, and the speakers will be able to reply. Let me start from one number. As you know, at Think Young, we are a think tank. We do some research. We are kind of number nerds. Women represent roughly half of the total population in Europe. Yet, they only constitute 34% of the self-employed, of the entrepreneurs in the EU, and only 30% of the startup entrepreneurs. I'd like to start from Sofia, who clearly comes from an extremely entrepreneurial company and background, and deals with startup on a daily basis since 2015. Sofia, in your opinion, what are nowadays the main obstacles preventing women from pursuing an entrepreneurial career?
Okay, thank you, Andrea. Really pleasure to be here, as this topic is very, very dear to my heart and to our heart at Google for Startups. But I think in terms of obstacles, we have several. Some of them big data, which is one is funding. Like, we know that 91% of all capital raised goes to men-led startups. The same 85% of the rounds also go to men-led startups. Then there's a lack of role models, and this is why it's so important events like this to actually show that there are amazing founders leading the charge and innovating in the startup world, because this visibility is crucial for the next generation of female founders. I think this is also something that we all need to be very aware of and responsible for. There's also the work-life balance, and I think that the COVID crisis has hit even harder women in tech, women across. So we have at Google, very, very dear to our heart to make sure that the economic recovery leaves no one behind. And then also we have less women in tech, less women studying, and 77% more or less of startups are led by founders with tech profiles. And so these are kind of some of the obstacles. And we're very, very aware at Google for Startups about these obstacles. And that's the reason we exist. Our mission is to level the playing field for founders across the world to make them succeed. And we focus especially on underrepresented goods, whether it's gender, race, or the socio-economic background, because we believe in the potential of these founders. We have Deborah and Francesca here representing, and I think we need to listen to them of the huge potential they have, not only in innovating in the results that they're bringing. They have sustainable businesses, and we really need to put the spot on this. And if we want technology to work for everyone, it needs to come for everyone. And this is why it's a North Star for us at Google for Startups. And for that, we run programs in order to help these founders grow by bringing the best of Google, helping them with technology, with infrastructure, with how to grow and go global, and also with leadership and some methodologies that we use at Google. And so helping them. And last but not least, something that is crucial, which is providing them with a network of support of other entrepreneurs across the region so that they can leverage in each other, which is crucial for all founders, but I think especially for women who face, as we were saying, even deepest obstacles in their path. So we run regional, both locally and regional programs. Actually, both Deborah and Francesca were part of our immersion programs, women immersion programs and Black founders immersion programs, in which we bring them together, we help them grow, we provide with them methodologies, products, data on how to go global and how to pursue their startups. And also today, I'm super excited to share with you that we also just announced today something very new to us and very dear to us, which is the Black Founders Fund. And Deborah is one of the recipients. So again, it's really focusing on ensuring that we level the playing field for those underrepresented founders, because we believe in their potential, we believe in them. And I think it's crucial for us to pursue this. And we do it through our programs, we do it through funds like the Black Founders Fund, because they are the growth engine for our economies to recover. And they are the innovators for our future economies.
Thank you very much, Sophia. And I took some notes of what you were saying, and absolutely congratulations on launching, the Black Founders Fund and everything else you guys are doing. And it is true that coming from a background also where, we all started some, at least in our case, an NGO. It's true that, when you have this kind of help, it's really what helps you at the beginning to do big step. If I can move to the now to the policy side of the conversation. So to Amaryllis, we know that SMEs are clearly at the heart of the European economy. This is something that I think we're all aware. And again, if we look a bit about the data, they generate more than half of EU GDP. And which is definitely something that I think, there is no other region probably in the world where SMEs are so crucial, where, districts are important. We all come from different countries where there are different know-how and districts that are absolutely, key to the success of a country itself. But what do you think, Amaryllis, could be the benefit of a greater representation of women in leadership position when it comes to the European SMEs for the economic environment as a whole?
Yeah, well, thank you very much. I think the benefit is clear, I think. The more women participate, the more thriving our economy is, but also the more meaningful our lives can be. There is absolutely no reason why there should be less female entrepreneurs than male entrepreneurs. There's no objective reasons for that. Now, we've monitored a bit the situation through the crisis, and I'm not going to repeat what Sophia just said, because I do agree with her diagnosis. The obstacles that you mention are also the obstacles we see. Access to finance, number one. We have seen through recent studies, and that's also why we are now creating a specific initiative to facilitate access to finance for female entrepreneurs in the context of our overall approach to better help SMEs get access to finance, because that's indeed a very, very crucial bottleneck that we need to do away. COVID-19 also has been a bottleneck, mainly, probably because of two reasons. First of all, if you look at where the female entrepreneurs are, they tend to be present in sectors that have been particularly hard hit by the crisis. Yeah. Yes, and then of course, crisis is meant for a lot of us, including myself, homeschooling. Try to be very creative and entrepreneurial when you have some kids running around. Now, you can raise the question, why is that more of an issue for women than it is for men? Results show that in any event, it hasn't really helped the cause of female entrepreneurship. Yeah. Having said that, no, it's clearly important for us as a commission. I mentioned just one of our initiatives. We have also earmarked other funds in order to help boost national initiatives, because the national level has, of course, the advantage of proximity. So it is best actually that we promote national initiatives, but with our helps. And then, of course, we have the We platform, which I hope you know. Yeah, which is actually the women entrepreneurship platform, which we use as a tool to actually multiply learning opportunities. So yes, very important for us, and happy also to learn how you see things and what you think could be done more.
Thank you, Marilis. And well, then we asked to one of the potential recipients of the platform and the fund that the Commission is putting in place. And I'm moving more now on to Deborah, one of the entrepreneurs and startuppers we have today. And Deborah, you started Bosk Plans, which I browsed briefly the website when the teams introduced me to you, and it's really honestly super nice, and I invite everyone to go and visit it. Amarilis was mentioning some part of the COVID-19 and how it had an impact on women and had an impact on startups, and you running a startup yourself. As an entrepreneur, what do you think are the challenges that the pandemic has posed to your startup? Eventually, also, which could be the opportunities maybe that you saw through the times. But really, let's start from the challenges that you've seen in the last 12, 15 months.
Andrea, thank you. And it's still very fresh, and I feel in many ways we're still going through it. But this past year has truly been a roller coaster, so both highs and lows. But I would say to kind of focus first on the challenges, for our industry, so we're in the plant business. It's a largely retail-driven industry. So imagine your Swedish furniture houses and tool shops. These are the kind of main drivers of where people primarily buy plants, and that's what we're trying to change. But what that has really kind of resulted in for us has been a lot of fluctuation in supply chain in the past year. And this has been, directly tied to, retail closures across the board with the various lockdowns over the past year that has seen, difficulty for all players sourcing, competitive selection, high quality selection. And it's something that, we work very closely with our growers, primarily in the Netherlands on, but they've never seen anything like this before. So that's been a huge challenge for us. I think that another kind of key challenge that I would mention, and I don't think it's, exclusive to our category, has been kind of interesting on, say, the customer side. There's been increased competition, when we look at our, say, performance spend in acquiring new customers and kind of breaking through the noise. There's a lot of businesses that may have used, say, other channels other than, say, digital marketing channels to get to their customers, maybe their retail outlets, that have shifted to a strongly digital-led marketing approach. And, I think that that's just kind of trained all marketers to be more creative, to be more distinctive in the past year. But this has also been, part of the ride. That said, I would like to share some of the high points as well. I think that, our category with plants is a special one. There's been increased demand, despite these challenges. I think in many ways, meaningfully, people are looking for wellness at home, looking at new hobbies, looking at the different ways that the home or interior space can become multifunctional and multidimensional. And plants played a big part of that for many people. And we've been able to benefit from that as well. On a personal level, I am not only an entrepreneur, I'm also a mother. So I have a 5-year-old daughter, and she's not yet in school. So it's the Kita, which is basically like a daycare program. And I think that a personal challenge has been really kind of balancing work and life, and finding the ways to kind of create and maintain that sense of normalcy and security, for my daughter, while also navigating all of these challenges as a business owner and an entrepreneur.
Thank you, Deborah. And I think you mentioned a couple of points that many people who probably don't know what's going on behind the scene are not considering. I mean, the supply chain that you said at the very beginning, it's something that, really people didn't know probably how important it was for all our economy, how important, how interconnected we are. And this made me actually help me to have a good link with Francesca, because one of the absolutely behind the scene tools that many of us use, among others, are definitely all the digital tools, which clearly I think they have helped in the last 20 years to really have young people with a laptop and a small website start a company. If you go back 100 years, we needed a lot of capital to start a company. Not everyone could be an entrepreneur. You need money potentially from your parents. And while today it's very simple, very easy. So digital technologies are really helping us in this boost and in this growth. And however, we know that in the adoption rate of certain technologies is not so high, especially in Europe. And what you guys are doing, which is more looking also at NGO and startups. So probably when you look at NGOs, you maybe have a good feeling of who's behind the people who buy and use your services with Goodbox. But do you think that in the adoption, and if you want to say a couple of words about Goodbox, which I think it's a great tool for NGOs, do you think there is a specific problem of a lower digital adoption and uptake among women who are leading small businesses?
Thanks for the question, and it's perfect that Deborah introduced the concept of, supply chain management prior to this, because for me, this is a question about resilience and good risk management. And that should never be a question of gender. Technology absolutely has a role to play in preparing businesses and in times of uncertainty. However, the flip side of poorly managed technology, of course, could be an increased exposure to cybersecurity vulnerabilities, and that should not be ignored either. Something that really stood out for me recently was a McKinsey report that highlighted, despite COVID, which has flagged kind of nature and how firms are resilient, it's brought that to the forefront of our minds. The nature of unplanned events, even prior to that, such as earthquakes, terrorism, and cybersecurity vulnerabilities, are far more frequent than we want to envision. The McKinsey report estimated that any business over a decade will lose an average of 40% of a year's annualized profits due to unplanned events. So in terms of SMEs' use of technology versus larger organizations, I think there's always a cost question versus a value proposition that any business owner has to weigh up. However, it is encouraging to see a growing world of SaaS subscription platforms and products which remove many of the barriers to entry for adoption of such technology. I think where the gender divide comes in versus the pandemic, and this was touched upon earlier, was that women have been more adversely affected, as there's still an industry divide when it comes to gender, with more women in services industries, which have been extremely affected by the pandemic, whereas you see tech companies such as Zoom, and they are booming. I hope through education and awareness that in future we don't have such a gender divide amongst industries, and I think we all have a role to making this happen. Just to touch a little bit then on your kind introduction to Goodbox. So we're a technology company established back in 2016, and we help nonprofit organizations with their digital fundraising. Still up until recently and still today, nonprofit organizations rely heavily on cash as a form of donations. So what Goodbox provides is your digital equivalent to a charity cash collection bucket. So instead of dropping your coins in the box, you simply take out a contactless card or phone and you can effortlessly donate to causes around you. We focus a lot with museums and galleries, religious organizations, but fundamentally any nonprofit organization where there was traditional cash fundraising in play can come to Goodbox to work with us to leverage our technology against a SaaS subscription model at an affordable cost to ensure that they can continue to fundraise and make greater connections in our highly digitalized society.
Wonderful. Thank you, Francesca. I was aware of Goodbox, but I thought it was definitely important that everyone who's listening to us and the general community is aware of what you guys are doing. You mentioned a McKinsey study. You talk about the importance of digital tools. Deborah before was talking about how, for the plant business, there was, this other side of a coin that actually the thing was, the business itself was growing because people were reevaluating a bit their spaces at home. And I was reading a study from another think tank, which is called Connected Commerce Council. And they clearly were showing how during COVID-19, on one side, yes, the pandemic was bad for certain business, for the one especially who didn't adopt much of digital technology. But as Deborah said, and I mean, not to talk about us, but also this very webinar, the whole idea of the webinars for us started because during the pandemic, we couldn't host events at the European Parliament anymore. And now we do many of them, and and again, the numbers are great, and we're reaching out to a larger audience that we could have ever dreamed. And Francesca, you mentioned Zoom, so needless to say. And this kind of, I wanted to ask this to Sophia, because I think, your experience with startup really dates back a bit. And it is even more true for women-led companies that according, to some data, that when you are able to adopt the digital transformation during COVID-19, but also in other, period of life, the startup itself was able to transform itself and even get better. Why do you think is the case? Why is this in your opinion?
Well, I think this crisis, and as Francesca was saying, kind of this unplanned events, and I think we just went through a historic one, has shown one is the character of entrepreneurs. They're just more flexible. They see opportunities where others see challenges, and I think they're just the way they're made. And I think this crisis has proven how startups, the same as digital SMBs, have proven to be more resilient. I think startups, even beyond, have not shown to be only resilient, but have shown growth. Of course, depends on the industry. We have had startups at Google for Startups in Spain, where, as you can imagine, travel and tourism has been hit tremendously, where it represents 40% of the GDP. But still, we decided to launch a program for startups in the travel tech industry. 95% of those startups are already showing growth, and we're still not packed our hotels, but they're seen. I think the crucial thing about startups, and we have some data from 2020, they created in Europe, the startups from our community, 15,000 jobs despite COVID. They have raised more than 2.5 billion, 10% more than in 2019. So I think data is backing that entrepreneurs, when faced to adversity, and especially those that are tech-based or digital-based, they have shown resilience, they have shown innovation, and they have shown given responses to those challenges. I think, for example, Deborah is a great example of this. Like when the worst first wave of COVID happened, we have many cases of our founders that just stopped, pivoted, and say how their solution could help the situation. Deborah on helping retailers that suddenly had to shut down their shops, and there were no way to get their products to their users. We have had other technologies like Idoven, who is bringing ways like devices to track the heart diseases. Like hospitals were totally collapsed, and people that had heart issues couldn't go to the doctor to just check. So they were bringing their devices home to make sure that they were continue being monitored. So I think this is also something that is amazing about startups, which is they're driving growth, they're driving innovation to solve for those big challenges that we're facing our society, and they're also being agents of digitalization to support SMBs to go beyond, to go further in the digitalization. I think Francesca and Deborah are both amazing examples of this. And I think this is why, and of course, like female founders, one thing that it's even more important about us supporting female founders is that the percentage of female founders that are pursuing high impact entrepreneurship, that are focusing on those industries that really need, that are focusing on green energy, that are focusing on health, that are focusing on economic impact. Biggest percentage of women founders are focusing on these industries. They're focusing on solving what we're facing as a society, as an economy. And I think I'm an optimistic at heart. And I really think that by supporting female entrepreneurs in Europe, we will soon get to the not only economic recovery, but an economic growth, a renovated economic growth.
Thank you, Sophia. And I just like to go back quickly to Francesca, because Sophia, you mentioned, impact startups, there is the old impact investing, which is coming, which is huge now. And, finally, I would say, we also read recently how, several NGOs were able to actually, bring forward topics to big companies, to governments, that probably before it was not so possible, because the general public was not so much in favor of this. But definitely, everything that is happening with the impact funding is really helpful for the recovery, and for a good recovery, if I can say that. And as you said, there has been people during, and especially entrepreneurs and startups, that during the COVID-19 tried not just to think about their own company, but also to help others. And I think, again, Goodbox is probably a good example of this, of how you guys, help other companies, and help NGOs in this case. And how can technology help charities and not-for-profit sector, especially, during COVID-19? How do you think? What's the role of technology? What's the role of Goodbox eventually during this pandemic?
Thank you. Well, I think it's really relevant that we've just talked about cause-led companies and solving societal problems. That was really the premise on which Goodbox was founded, and it's allowed us to attract amazing investment. We've raised over 15 million since 2016 to bring these solutions first to the UK market and look at internationalization. And it also allows us access to the best talent. People really do get motivated when working for a company whereby you're driven by the cause and by the impact that you can have, not just in your day-to-day kind of roles in life, but also in your wider society. And that's something that we're really proud of. And that really is our North Star for Goodbox, is about a better world. And, technology certainly can help, of course, but it's never, I think one thing I'd like to flag is it's never a silver bullet. And this is why Goodbox focuses on a product and service model, because our clients really, really benefit from this. It's vitally important to us that alongside adopting Goodbox technology, there's a considered fundraising strategy, which we can, of course, assist with to make sure that clients feel comfortable using technology and using solutions. It's why when we founded the business 2016, we created a niche market of our own. There were banks, there were acquirers, and contactless was very prevalent in the UK back in 2016. It's just the iteration and the form of merchant services wasn't appropriate for the needs of fundraising. For example, when you look at a standard payment machine, there's no way of communicating with people about what it is that you're fundraising for. There are various features which don't allow you to effortlessly donate on a single tap. So this is why Goodbox went about developing its own hardware and software proposition specifically for fundraisers. And that's why we get the results that we do for our clients. So it's really important, going back to that SaaS subscription model, this product plus service offering that Goodbox provides, that we've been able to create technology and bring it to market in a commercially viable way that does have impact. And we put a lot of effort in behind the scenes. And that really goes, a long way to stipulate why we've had to raise so much investment up until this point. Of course, we've been hit by COVID. 90% of our clients were visitor attraction centres, and so they all had to close their doors, which meant that for us there was a long time where really revenues dropped to very, very minimal amounts, and that was a real challenge to us. We were fortunate to be supported by things like the government's Future Fund in the UK, and really by a network of investors and people that really do believe in the value of what we're bringing to society in the long run. And then on the flip side, just to talk a little bit about opportunity, of course, there's always opportunity with situations like this. And also, I'm an optimist as a founder, eternal optimist, always like to look at the glass half full. But there's been an acceleration as we're coming out of COVID, kind of fingers crossed for the future here in the UK, of an adoption and an acceleration in adoption of digital as cash becomes even more scarce, as people look to find ways of which making payments where they consider it to be more hygienic. It is probably the primary reason that people are adopting the use of our contactless donations, possibly faster than they would have done pre the pandemic.
Thank you, Francesca. Let me move over to Karina and also move. I think we have touched upon several topics, when it comes to women in business. We've touched upon the pandemic clearly because it's with us, and gender gap, family, and now Karina, from your position, at director of a developer alliance, you clearly talk on a daily basis with a lot of tech companies. I think you read a lot of dossier, Brussels-based, imagine a lot of probably legal documents as well. But I think you also have probably the feel and the sense of technology, of a gender gap. I mean, let's face it, IT was traditionally, probably still is a bit, a very, a male-dominated industry in which, when we clearly see from data, when women join, when we have heterogeneity in teams, the results are better. How important do you think, the role of technology is, not just in technology company, in general, for to improve the gender gap, to make sure that starting from education to the world of work, that we can support gender equality in business?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. So technology is a great enabler. Sometimes we take technological progress for granted. If we take a moment to recognize, how many things we can do, even with the cheapest smartphone or laptop. I'm learning, for example, the basics of programming language using an app on my phone, which is not an expensive one. So I can even code or do my first attempts of coding on the phone. So, access to information and a connection to people, to communities or different entities, organizations, but also access to affordable tools can only empower girls and women and open up opportunities for them. So I'm mentioning affordable tools because they are the key elements to have a better life, to participate in different activities, including economic activities, of course, and to be successful. And they range from access to online classes, different educational digital tools, to access to marketplaces, very important, to various online platforms, various business tools. I can only think about, there are tools for marketing, optimizing, automating processes, customer support, facilitating payments, financial services. We had a great example here, but also tools for training and mentorship and so on. So digital solutions should be available for all girls and women all along the way, from early school years to the entire professional life. And digital skills are essential for women. And it's more than learning how to use devices or to access online platforms or digital tools, but it's also how to utilize them in a strategic manner, building an entrepreneurial mindset. And this is relevant for fostering women participation in business in general, not only for technology-based businesses. And technological solutions, they are there, they are constantly evolving, and we just need to make them available to all, I underline, all girls and women, no matter the background, and so no one should be left behind. And I would like to make a special mention on the need to utilize and adapt technology in order to address inequalities when it comes to certain categories of women. And here a key role is the inclusive assistive technology. There are developments with AR and VR. I'm looking into the future, but also I'm thinking about those women that identify as part of LGBTQ communities. we're celebrating Pride Month, and they are taking advantage and should really benefit from the opportunities provided by the digital economy. And I have a last thought on certain challenges related to the online environment, social media, for example, or issues related to biases that are mirrored by data sets, algorithms, and so forth. And here I think more awareness and having them properly addressed will improve the quality of technology and in general of the online environment. And one one can use actually advanced technologies like AI to reduce the gender gap and inequalities more broadly. So I'm optimistic. I think technology provides tools, and it's entirely up to us how we make the most of them, and of course how we empower women.
Thank you, Karina. You were talking a bit about the future, and I think in this debate, in this conversation we're having, we spoke a bit about the past and the pandemic, and now looking a bit about the future. I like to challenge a bit Amaryllis, in the sense that according to the study I was mentioning before, the one of the Connected Commerce Council, the younger SMEs are more likely to be digitally advanced and therefore resilient to certain crises. This is something that Deborah told us, that Francesca told us. I think we have from experience that digital advanced are more resilient and have been more resilient during the pandemic. At the same time, we as Think Young, we see that women in leadership roles among young enterprise, young startup, the rate of women in leadership is way higher than in the general, let's say, population of business. Looking at the future, the fact that in younger companies, in younger startups, women are more in leadership position. What do you think does this tell us about the future of female entrepreneurship, about the future of that we're about to experience in the coming years? We lost Amaryllis for a second. Amaryllis, I don't know if you heard my question.
Yes, I am back.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I don't know what happened. I heard that you were going to challenge me, and then the whole system broke down.
And then you left.
Yeah, I was like, no, thank you.
So where's the challenge?
No, I was asking, based on what Karina said, and based also on a study that I mentioned before, the Connected Commerce Council, it is clear from data that in younger companies you have more women in leadership position. And and we also know that younger companies are the ones that are more digitally savvy, so they are the ones that are more, let's say, resilient when a crisis like the one we are living hit us. If you look a bit about the future, and that's the challenge, try to predict a bit the future. What do you think this tells us? The fact that there are more women in leadership position in companies that are a bit younger, and these one are the ones that are, let's say, more flexible when it comes to future potential, crisis or threat.
I think this tells us that women are great, no? And that we have to empower more women. No, I mean, for me, this tells me first that probably the issue is a matter of time. You say in younger companies you have more women. Well, if that is true, then we're definitely going in the right direction. Doesn't mean that we don't have any issues to solve, but there might be a generation gap here, which we are slowly crossing already. And then indeed, if you're able to show, if you have those figures, I'm not aware of these figures, that there is a correlation between more women being in a company and the resilience of that company, well, I think it's great. It just is a big tribute to the creativity of women. But the thing is, I don't have the figures here now to reply to that. What I can only tell you is, I can only reiterate myself. We as a European Commission believe very much in entrepreneurship, obviously. And we absolutely also believe in female entrepreneurship. And that is a matter of closing the gap and harnessing the potential of everyone. And that is why we are working at our level on a number of tools that can help fit the picture. But again, I mean, don't expect just solutions coming from the European Commission or from any public authority. I think that this is something where all public authorities and private bodies must join forces in order to make it happen. Huh? Even families, because role modeling is where it all starts, I think.
Thank you.
And one can see that. And let me tell you this, I'm also a mother. It was already mentioned by some of you. I'm mother already of elder kids, students, university students. And I see that what my youngsters have told me is that, you know, female students that have working mothers, they feel much more relaxed, much more secure about their opportunities. They feel, okay, I can do this, I can make this, I can make it happen. Work-life balance, not an issue, we can work it out. So I think it shows the power indeed of role modeling.
Yeah, which is definitely what Sophia was saying at the very beginning. Two things: access to finance and absolutely the role modeling. I'm really, if I can insist a bit more on you, because you mentioned, the policymaker and the Commission cannot take care of everything, but indeed you guys have an important and key role in Europe. So on this one, the European Commission released the SME strategy, and to try to unleash the power of SMEs, which, as we said before, they are more than 50% of European GDP. Now, it's clearly that the Commission recognizes the need for targeted intervention to address the gender gap, the specific issue that faced by female entrepreneurship and female-led business at large, not just startups, but I would say, even older age of a company itself. If you can tell us a bit more about this, what is the European Union doing in practice, for women entrepreneurs and for supporting a sustainable recovery in post-pandemic? Probably can take 2 hours the answer, but if you can summarize.
Yes, but I'm going to try to be quick. So indeed, we have an SME strategy, which contains a number of elements. One strand of that strategy is about boosting digitalization for SMEs in general, and that includes, of course, also women. One of the tools that we are creating in that context is the so-called digital innovation hubs. These are basically local hubs, but created in order to help young entrepreneurs, including female entrepreneurs, in their first steps. And that is now being rolled out. This is just one example. Funding has also been earmarked in the context of the SME strategy as a very important area on which to work. And here, as I've mentioned to you before, we are actually launching an initiative which is specifically targeting female entrepreneurs when it comes to funding. So this is a support mechanism that we're putting in place in order to facilitate access to finance for women. Okay? An important lever. And then indeed, networking, learning, peer-to-peer learning, all this is being facilitated through the platform I think I mentioned in the beginning, and I would be very grateful if actually my fellow speakers can give me a bit of feedback on their experience with the platform. It's a so-called WE platform. So WE stands for Women Entrepreneurship Platform, where we exactly try to do this, networking, peers-to-peers, bringing people together, mainstreaming education opportunities. And but these are just 3 examples. I can go on indeed, but don't want to cannibalize your time.
Thank you for being cautious of the time, and definitely for mentioning at least the 3 important parts. And I'm sure everyone who's watching us and will watch this video, because it will be available also later on our social media, will take notes and go and look at. If I can ask to Karina, who is probably among all of us the one who's most updated on policy, what is your take? What can European policymakers do to foster the digital transition, and how can women in general be encouraged to take more interest in STEM discipline as well? Because from the Developer Alliance, I think you guys look at STEM disciplines very close, and STEM education, which is something that also at Think Young we're trying to do. So I was wondering, what is your your opinion on the policymakers and on the STEM disciplines in this case.
Yes, well, the EU objectives for the digital transformations of the economy are highly welcomed, and we already heard that there are ambitious investment programs and several interesting initiatives, and we highly welcome the initiative on digital innovation hubs that should bring concrete benefits to the European startups and SMEs. And the initiatives that are specifically targeting female entrepreneurs that were mentioned before, but also I would like to add the importance of the implementation of the European skills agenda. It plays an important role, and one needs to work on setting the right incentives for the uptake of the digital tools and the new technologies, and for adaptation of SMEs business models. And key elements for that is developing the entrepreneurship ecosystems, but also the entrepreneurship culture, the growth mindset. And I think it's vital in ensuring a business-friendly environment. And I heard about the SME strategy. Well, I saw that it rightly identified the main challenges, for SMEs, and one of them, a persistent one, is the red tape within the single market. We're hearing that from developers too. So that needs to be addressed. We need to see concrete, improvements there. And another important aspect is equal access to the right information and tools, and especially orientation, mentorship in critical moments, such as the final years of an education cycle, when entering the labor market, or when starting a business, or in critical decisive moments for career or business growth. And I like to say that, it's not only about policies and regulations, but it's also about changing mentalities overall, from the education system to different working environments, and basically in the whole daily life. And girls and women are encouraged when they see everybody has really the same options, opportunities, and when their intellectual capacities, their potential are fully recognized. So even, let's say, the right policies in place, there are the best recruitment strategies, and there are transparent procedures and so on. So they should feel welcomed, empowered, and not undermined by discriminatory attitudes. So I'm speaking about simple attitudes. Sometimes even a discreet gesture can have a significant effect on a woman's self-esteem. So unfortunately, that's still, it's an societal challenge, and even here in Europe, I mean, and in general, and in all economic areas, not only in the technology sector, we can see that. So what we need, I think, we need more positive educational and professional experiences, and we need to address gender stereotyping and discrimination. We need to be perseverant in that. And the lack of role models was mentioned, fully agree. And yeah, we need to, recognize and give more visibility to women.
Thank you, Darina. And I'll pause on that because I think you said many, and you touched upon many important concepts, and you were able to do it in one or two sentences. You spoke about incentives, which the more I'm involved with, let's say, Brussels and politics somehow, the more I realize that incentives are key to move people. Otherwise, and you mentioned the business-friendly environment, which having the opportunity of growing Think Young in other regions of the world, in Asia and Africa, the business-friendly, I think it's really the key word, the fact that it's friendly, the fact that you as an entrepreneur are welcome somewhere, and they don't look you like in some countries in Europe. Now things are changing, but I come from Italy, and for many years, business people, entrepreneurs were not seen as role models. They were seen someone dodgy and a bit difficult. So it was not friendly at all. It's an extremely important concept, same as a growth mindset that you mentioned. In this one, Deborah, I think that you that let's say the other half of your life, if I can call it like this, not just as an entrepreneur, but also you started Tech in Color, which I don't know if it's an NGO or an association, but definitely, when we look at the word and the different stakeholders, we have the public, Amaryllis and Karina, somehow we have a private with business, big business startups, but also we have NGOs and all the advocacy group, I would say, and you started Tech in Color, which aims to enable access, visibility, and funding, as we said, as Sophia said, it's extremely important to women founders who have faced obstacles in their entrepreneurial journey, tied to their ethnicity, tied to their race. And given your experience in this field, what do you think is needed from the policymaker to finally address these persistent gaps in business, these persistent gaps in society, if I can go even farther?
What a great question, and thank you for that one, Andrea. I have maybe too many things I could say, but I'll try to boil it down. When it comes to the issue of supporting women who've faced, challenges in their business journey tied to their race or ethnicity, I really think that we're able to react to what we can track. And I think that when we talk about the gender gap, and we see, various public and private actors and even EU level actors, amazing companies like Google addressing this gap, it starts off because we can actually see it and then measure our efforts against it and see, how we're progressing and making change. And I think on a policy level, there's a lot of challenges with really recording and tracking and surfacing where we are when it comes to race and ethnicity on an EU level. I think there's some challenges there around data privacy. There's historical kind of differences across, say, continental Europe and how we actually define ethnic minority and so forth. So there's definitely a lot of hurdles to overcome. But I do think that it's incredibly important for us to be able to track where we are to really kind of enact change. That said, I think that, on a pragmatic level, when we talk about founders who are underrepresented, we're also often talking about founders who are, say, maybe migrant founders or coming from third countries. And myself being a Nigerian American, now running a business in Germany, there was a huge learning curve to overcome, and just simply understanding, what's step 1, 2, and 3 in actually forming a business here. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity within that challenge to streamline and even digitalize various steps in that process to open up the simple process of business formation for more people. And, I think that impacts all of us, but also I think can absolutely impact the underrepresented as well. And finally, I think that, it's hard to say what to call this. I think it's maybe mindset. It's this idea of, how do we diversify how we think about diversity? And with Tech in Color, we've really, my co-organizers and I've really not only embraced, but in many ways kind of pioneered our kind of laser focus on intersectionality. This idea that we are all hyphenated, and there's different ways that our, say, various identities can lead to bias or lead to obstacles in our journeys. And I think that when we talk about, women entrepreneurs and women business owners, we have to find ways to also support women who are business owners that are mothers, that are migrants, that are neurodiverse. And I think that it's really this difficult process to take, but absolutely a needed one for us to be able to really serve all women So that's me trying to keep it short.
Thank you, Deborah, and congratulations for the initiative. Speaking about an important cause, you might have noticed that our logo has changed through the webinar. It is Pride Month, and I'm very proud that at Think Young we are definitely also supporting this very, very important cause from many different point of view, many different battles. Opening up to our audience, I know there are some questions from the different platforms, and if you have not written or asked your question on the platform where you're watching us, please just type it in and it will be show up. We still have, I would say, a good 8, 9, probably 10 minutes if the speakers are so kind to stay a little bit more. So I'm asking my team who's working on this in the background if I can put up the first question. And that's from LinkedIn, where Sylvia asked what best practices can be leveraged for gender and diversity mainstreaming, and what role will gender-sensitive and gender-smart initiative play in post-pandemic recovery? Okay, that's an important question and quite a big one. I don't know who's addressed to, but is there anyone who want to take over the question from Sylvia? Which are the best practices that can be leveraged for gender and diversity mainstreaming? Shall I eventually?
I'll do that.
Yeah,
Go, Francesca, go.
No, I was just going to say, I think it's a really great question. And it's still, when I try and do like recruitment, I still find it exceptionally hard to get a diverse candidate pipeline. That's something that's really noticeable, particularly at senior level roles. And so I think you just have to try a bit harder at this point in time. There are specific recruitment networks that cover a whole range of kind of diversity topics. And it's definitely worth putting the extra effort in to make sure that you're building a diverse candidate pipeline. Diversity is shown to have really significant positive impacts on businesses. It'll allow you to better understand a wider reach of consumers. I think at the moment we have to try a bit harder, and I think it's definitely worth it. And fundamentally, I hope that in the future that we are starting younger from an educational level, and that actually we're educating people of the future to appeal to a wider network of roles, and it's not so gender stereotypes like boys do go and do computer science, for example. I hope that we can start that, so our future generations, it's not so challenging to make sure that you are recruiting widely, but it's so important. So thank you for the question.
Thank you, Francesca. Next question. What do we have? Ahmed Zoutberg, this is from YouTube. Hi everyone, really enjoying the webinar so far. Thank you, Ahmed. Speaking of tools and the obstacles for women in this field specifically, would you happen to know any more network groups or organizations for women? Here, I guess we probably have, you definitely must have some names, or you can point, Ahmed, to that you have come from your experience. Who would like to take this?
Well, I can start. I think that more than the question and coming up with some numbers that I think, some names, I think it's the power of the network. And I think this question is very, very important for you to ask, and to ask for which is this group, this network that you can belong. Because I think the power of community at Google for Startups, we help individual entrepreneurs to grow, but always with this layer of community and creating a network so that they can help each other. And I think when we're talking about diversity, it's especially crucial. I think, for example, at Google, we have we're supporting initiatives such as Woman Will, Woman in Tech, several initiatives, and of course all the network of the alumni and the Google for Startups community. If Ame, you happen to be an entrepreneur or leading a startup, please reach out to us, because this is a unique group of people to be part of, and that leveraging each other and to succumb these obstacles. I don't know, Karina, if you can just also share some more based on developers.
Oh, absolutely. It's all about the communities. depends on, on the area that you want to, you have ideas and you want to be involved, to engage with, and for developers, there are so many communities, and they are organized, around different platforms, around different programming language, but also, is the open source community where you can find a lot of, but there are a lot of, so-called meetups, local organizations, of developers, and usually you can find also a lot of women, girls, enthusiastic girls involved. I witnessed that. So yeah, indeed, it's all about, as I said, accessing information, and it's, and sometimes I acknowledge that sometimes it's hard to find the right information, but as I said, it depends, and don't be afraid an advice to ask, because it all depends on to ask. And also, I saw a great example lately, if you don't find anything that is fit for you, maybe it's just a sign that you could start a network, the community.
Great. And I don't know if you guys have other network to point or two, but I think the we women entrepreneurs help us, that Amaryllis was saying before, definitely an important one. Deborah, please, absolutely.
Just to add to what Karina said, I think, yes, absolutely, don't be afraid to ask, but I think that, also importantly, don't be afraid to announce. I think we as women sometimes don't toot our own horn loud enough or often enough. And if you are planning to launch a business or launch some sort of venture, now could be a great opportunity to actually announce that to your existing network, and see, what can also come from sharing this this new chapter. I think that there's going to be opportunities within your existing network, and also opportunities to tap into new ones.
Thank you. And anyone else who would like to give some advice to me? Otherwise, I know there are plenty of questions on the social media. The problem is that I have to be respectful of everyone's times and commitment, and especially in the pandemic life that we're working from home, I know that every minute can be the beginning of a next Zoom call or conference call. So I just would like to, first of all, thank you all for this amazing webinar. We usually, when we have young people on the panel, we ask them, if you were in charge for one day, what would you do? But you are all in charge. So you're in charge every day. So I'm not asking you that question. I'm rather asking you a final 30 seconds message from each one of you before we say bye to the crowd. And I start in, from, let's say, from the order of we see each other. So starting from Deborah.
Wow, 30 seconds. I would say, we've talked about a lot of different challenges and opportunities today, but I think that on an individual level, I think it's really important to remind ourselves of our capability, that we already know something, that there's opportunity to learn more. I think that, we're talking here about starting businesses, growing businesses, and across the ride, we have to ask and remind ourselves that we are capable.
Thank you, Deborah. Karina, off to you.
Well, we need more awareness, relentless and joint efforts from different stakeholders, reduce the gender gap, to empower women in schools, in workplaces, in society in general. Technology is providing useful solutions in this endeavor, and ultimately, technological progress is meaningless without social progress.
Thank you. Amaryllis?
My message would be, let's seize the opportunity of the crisis of which we are trying to recover now, and we are definitely recovering, to do something better and bolder, and build our futures, use the digital tools we have, but in particular, believe in ourselves, empower ourselves, and go for it. And we can.
Thank you. Francesca, off to you.
Well, I was really encouraged by Marilisa's comments earlier that her children are inspired with working mothers, because I too am a mother too, and they are often my greatest source of inspiration. So, Karina, you touched upon women not feeling confident. That's, commonly known as the imposter syndrome. We all suffer from it, but don't let us get us down. This is a really phenomenal opportunity, particularly as we have more flexible workforces. We can work from home. That allows that work-life balance to become even more accessible for so many. So I'm super excited about the future, and thank you for organizing such a wonderful panel.
Thank you, Francesca. Sophia, we started with you, the first question, and by coincidence, you get to have the last message and the last word.
So I think it's two different messages. One is I understand that we have a very young audience. So I think for one is trying to send an inspiring message. We have here two amazing entrepreneurs, Deborah and Francesca. We talked about the power of role models. So I'm just sending this message of, I think we're entering the era of entrepreneurship. They've shown to be more resilient to the crisis. They've shown to come with opportunities and solutions to the crisis, and they made it. They're both female founders at the head of tech startups. They're on top of it, they're mothers. If they're made it, you can make it. And the second is for Andrea, what you were saying, for those that are in charge. I think that we have a responsibility to, one, give visibility to those role models. We have the responsibility to help them grow, because you were saying there are more female founders at the beginning. Let's make sure that these ones that are at the beginning grow into global companies, creating jobs and opportunities. And also let's make sure that we are creating inclusive workplaces, inclusive programs, inclusive environments, because the key to diversity is setting inclusive areas.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sophia. Thank you to all of you for the whole hour we spent together, and the final message. It was extremely enriching, also from a personal point of view. Very proud. A big thank to the Think Young team who put this together, and they work in the background, and they work in the last couple of weeks to make sure everyone was aligned and informed and ready to be present at this webinar. And I think the only thing I like to close with is keep following us, because there are more webinars coming, more part of this journey that is going on, and enjoy Pride Month, which is a very important thing. Thank you very much to everyone, and bye-bye.
Thank you all. Thank you so much.